for the people, our community, the people who need facts, where in my country we have an average of 20 typhoons every year, talking about the LA fires. When those typhoons happen, information, facts, is the difference between life and death. Do you know where to evacuate? Do you know when to evacuate? Do you know where the flooding, where it will hit? So, for our people, our communities, the first is an awareness that you are in an environment that is manipulating you, that is shifting your view of the world, that is using your fear, your anger, and hate. So that was part of what we saw in the Philippines. 90 hate messages per hour, that was insane. But for our community who supported us, they were afraid, as we were, right? Embrace your fear. But they also found community. We talked to each other. This is why the first thing to say that I said in the 4 suggestions is collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Find like-minded, the people with values, this entire gathering, the Jubilee, what you have brought us for. We believe in God. We believe in the same things, these values that underpin many of our democratic governments. So how do you find courage? You're not alone. Find your community. The solution to the loneliness, to the epidemic of loneliness, is community. The community that has been broken because trust has been broken. I think this is one of the things Pope Francis does well. He restores trust, right? I think it's amazing that the dicastery has journalists kicking off the Jubilee when journalists have been sometimes relentless in investigating the church, right? So it's to all of our good. I guess long answer to your question, but don't think about it as courage. And that was the last thing I was going to say, the third part, which is that that was always the question when I kept getting arrested. That was 2019, and I just said, it's not really courage. This is who I am. This is who you are. You have to draw the line on your values, where on this side you're good, and you cross and you're evil. So you draw the line and you hold the line. Tim Snyder would say, don't voluntarily give up your rights, right? Or I think he has a different phrase for it. I just say, don't voluntarily give up your rights. Courage is the sum of so many things in each of us that ultimately just ends in one action point. Put your foot in front of each other, one step at a time.
Grazie Maria, direi che è una domanda così bella e profonda che forse posso chiedere se Mario e Col vogliono aggiungere qualcosa e rispondere anche loro sul tema del coraggio. Col?
When I was talking this morning, I talked about journalists and teachers, and again, in relation to answering this question, how about we as a society start instituting some respect for our teachers and some respect for our journalists too? It's time. I will tell you this, I travel a lot, and a lot of you may not see this in the world, but if you go to an American airport these days, you'll hear, as people are getting on the plane, anybody on active military duty or anybody with an active military ID, please board the plane first. You hear this all the time. I have nothing against that. It's not my place to say whether or not what they're doing is good or bad. Well, maybe it is, but I'm not going to make a moral judgment on that. a lot of these people do really good things, but I cannot wait until the day that you show your teacher's ID, or imagine if you showed your journalism card and you were able to get on the plane first. And maybe this also applies to people of the cloth, the men and women of the cloth. Maybe this, if we begin to respect these people who are helping serve us in some extraordinary way, we will begin to turn the tide and the temperature around all these things, and then the courage will come up from underneath. And so the courage will come from respect, decency, and recognition of what people do.
Io direi solo una frase. Come si trova il coraggio? Secondo me, avendo a cuore, amando la propria credibilità. Cioè, se uno pensa, io voglio essere un giornalista credibile, voglio essere un giornalista integro, voglio essere un giornalista coerente, voglio poter avere la mia faccia, essere sicuro della mia faccia, non vergognarmi della mia faccia. Questo ti dà coraggio, perché tutte le volte in cui per paura o per timore dovresti fare un compromesso, se in quel momento pensi, ecco, al di là che sia giusto o sbagliato, ma se questo compromesso, che adesso mi sembra facile, poi distruggerà la mia credibilità, che è una cosa che uno dovrebbe aspirare ad avere per tutta la vita. E allora, secondo me, nell'avere fede in quello in cui si crede, nella propria credibilità, si trova il coraggio si trova il coraggio necessario.
Aggiungo una cosa piccola anche io, mi pare che una risposta alla tua domanda l'abbia data anche il Papa nelle parole che ci ha detto oggi, quando ha detto il Papa sapeva già che tu avessi fatto la domanda e ti ha anticipato, quando ha detto padre, quando lui dice padre io dico sempre le cose vere, e lui gli fa ma tu sei vero? Non solo le cose che tu dici, ma nel tuo interiore, nella tua vita sei vero. Io penso che il coraggio ce lo dà se noi siamo veri e non costruiti. E nell'essere veri, probabilmente se siamo veri nell'ammettere la nostra debolezza. Oggi celebriamo la conversione di San Paolo, un grande, un grandissimo della Chiesa. Però sappiamo anche la sua storia, sappiamo come lui ci abbia insegnato di dire che quando siamo più deboli, che siamo più forti, e questo porta a dire le cose che diceva anche Maria su costruire una rete, essere una comunione, fondarsi sulla verità della nostra anche piccolezza e anche sulla forza di affidarci anche agli altri. E c'è un'altra cosa che volevo dire, perché c'è un rischio anche, secondo me, in un'interpretazione sbagliata del coraggio e della volontà di affermare la nostra verità, la nostra, non quella di Dio, la nostra, ed è quella di brandirla come se fosse un'arma con cui colpire gli altri. Papà stesso, quando dice dobbiamo anche un po' svuotarci, ascoltare gli altri, offrirci noi stessi agli altri, dice che il coraggio sta anche nello svuotarsi ed è quindi nel condividere la verità in questo modo umile. C'è un rischio, se no, di essere prepotenti, di pensare di voler costruire noi il paradiso in terra, che è un po' un volersi ergere a costruire uno stato etico totalitario. Penso che un buon giornalista debba avere anche questa umiltà nel condividere la propria verità, che questo sia un atto di coraggio. Non c'è niente di peggio che i giornalisti che credono di sapere già tutto e che lo vogliono imporre con la forza. Ecco, ne conosciamo ognuno di noi nei propri paesi. Ecco, penso che volevo aggiungere queste cose. Adesso se ci sono altre, prego. Ce ne sono una qui, un'altra qua, un altro qui, un altro laggiù, se vi prende
Io
la
sarò
parola, ok?
velocissima, ma volevo ultimare la citazione del libro di Gemma Calabresi, La crepa e la luce, perché mi auguro che tutti possano leggerlo, è veramente di grande ispirazione, come pure, non sono qui per fare pubblicità per gli acquisti, però la storia del papà di Giulia Cecchettin, che è un caso che in Italia pure ha molto un femminicidio. Il libro del padre veramente ci ricorda, come ha detto anche Maria, che abbiamo tutti il potere della scelta, il potere è libero arbitrio, e noi ogni giorno, in ogni situazione, anche la più dolorosa, un padre che perde la figlia, capite bene, e possiamo scegliere fra l'amore e la vendetta, la paura, tutto ciò che sappiamo offusca. Quindi grazie.
Grazie, grazie. Quindi non so se qualcuno vuole commentare tu. Ha già detto tutto. Per chi non la conosce, insomma, sono due ottimi suggerimenti di storie da condividere per capire come si può uscire dal buio, si può uscire senza volontà di vendetta, ma riuscendo a cambiare verso delle storie. C'era forse laggiù, prego.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Sister Jean from the Philippines and from the congregation of Little Missionaries of the Sacred Heart. I ask these questions because one child asked me, Sister Jean, are you praying for peace? How come still war existing? So that is the premise. And my questions are, many times it's really easy to say, but it's really hard to do. Now, telling and listening stories in this world where it seems difficult to spend more time and everyone wants instant way, where many loses hope and various desperate cases, where war seems no ending and an ending situation is still happening, seems evil prevail over good. Does this mean that battle between good and evil endures until the end of the world? And today, in what concrete way we face all this precariousness of life? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to answer, Maria?
Sorry, sister, what was the question in at the end?
At the very end.
At the tail end? Do you mind saying it again?
Actually, I have many questions. So this is about, it seems it's very difficult to go out from difficulties because of the instantness of today's generation and where there is no more hope and a lot of precariousness. So how do you think there is an end between this battle between good and evil? How is it that we spend more time in prayers but seems war is unending? And so I know that you have said a lot of things, but in a concrete way, facing this all these kind of personalities, how we can answer to those questions?
So first, I think I've said often today that this moment is different, right? This is a very different time where we are literally given our own personalized realities. That's personalization of the tech. So imagine if every single person in this room on your feed is given the reality you want. That's personalization. If that were really the case and we're in the real world, this would be an insane asylum. We cannot all have a personalized reality. We live together in our shared reality. So my response, sister, is that this is a difficult moment. And it is a moment very similar to, I pointed to World War II. I don't think it's necessarily good versus evil, in the sense that many people don't realize that the acts, again, this search for individualism, in some cases for the younger generation, they live a performative life on these platforms. Imagine when you spend your life on this, waiting for approval. It's like never leaving high school in a popularity game, right? Like, how do they find meaning? So, sorry, it's a long-winded answer to your question, which is that the more difficult the time, the more important it is to have your community. And that community, sister, I think sounds like it includes you, right? Giving up hope is not an option because we don't want to accept the world as it is right now. In the 39 years that I've been a journalist, this is the worst. This is the first time at the end of last year I was just saying, oh my God, I've never seen the world in as bleak a phase. And I'm again saying, in the Philippines, we moved from hell to purgatory. So we are moving up. We want to get up beyond purgatory. And we can, but we cannot give up hope. And I think that's part of the reason why we keep doing our jobs. Journalists keep doing our jobs. And from what I think, what Paolo had said, that journalists are hard-headed, we're pragmatic, we don't want to be seen as sentimental, we don't want to necessarily be seen, yeah, we don't necessarily, we've been taught to be a certain way. Colin can say this, I think this is the time where journalists are also forced to look at ourselves and redefine. I'm still not directly answering your question, am I? Which is, we can't give up. There's just absolutely no option. And hope is all about building and finding your community. Remember the 4 things I had said earlier. Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Our values. I believe people are basically good. So if we do and we continue to work together, I was looking at the hall this morning, if every single person there took their family and friends, which is the way these apps work, and worked in the same direction, if we demanded better from here, if you demand truth, facts from the people who govern you, and you give them the respect and the gentleness to respond, because sometimes that we also forget, then we can make it better. But on the last question on the journalist, it's not that you're journalists, it's not just the journalists who have to be courageous now. The institution is so weakened that we need you, civil society, the Catholic Church. We need people of faith who believe that this will be better. We need to work together.
Thank you, Maria. Colin, would like
Briefly, for evil to exist, it need only happen once. For good to exist, it has to happen over and over and over again. That's one of the major differences. And that's where hope exists actually in difficulty. And I got in trouble yesterday for quoting Gramsci in the Vatican. Those of you, some of you will know what I mean. But I'm gonna quote Spinoza now. And Spinoza says, "All things excellent are as difficult as they are rare." And one of the things that we're going to have to do, if we're really going to do something beautiful and profound, is embrace the difficulty of what we have to embark upon, no matter whether it be journalists or teachers or faith or writers or artists. And the second thing I have to say about what Maria was saying so beautifully is that not only do we need the journalists, but we need brave readers.